So why did AOL dial-up recently shut down? So for an entire generation, a few simple sounds defined our gateway to the world. And the screeching and hissing of a modem, handshake, the slam of a phone being picked up elsewhere in the house, and the triumphant, cheerful voice declaring,
You've got
this
mail.
was the soundtrack of the early internet. This was America Online. For everyone that can remember, it was an amazing time to be alive. And it wasn't just some service. I got my first taste in America Online from a CD-ROM placed on the cereal box that I took home and plugged into that computer. So it was the internet for millions. Before Google, social media, before Wi-Fi, there was AOL. It's how you first explored chat rooms, got your first email address, and spent hours tying up the family phone line to something that sounded like this. So at its peak around the year 2000, AOL was an absolute titan with over 25 million subscribers in North America alone, and it dominated at-home internet access. It was the foundation for how millions of people experienced the online world, some for the very first time, like yours truly. And so when AOL announced it was finally pulling the plug on its dial-up service recently, just about 2 days ago, I was reading, the big question wasn't just what happened, but also dial-up still exists? How does a service that taught a generation how to get online just vanish? How did the undisputed king of the internet for everyone get left so far behind? So we're going to explore into this on the podcast today. And again, welcome to our dialogue den, and let's get into it. So understand how AOL dial-up faded. You have to understand how it first conquered the world. The first glimpse into the internet, the first dialing into the internet, global network of computer networks, wasn't just about technology. It was about making a confusing, hostile digital world feel friendly and accessible. Reaching out to family that doesn't live near you. Reaching out to people that have similar interests like you in chat rooms. So back in the early 90s, the internet was a clunky and intimidating feat for most people. It wasn't just something you used. It was something you had to figure out how it works. AOL, which started as a small company in 1985, saw something firsthand that the tech purists didn't. People wanted the internet to be easy connectivity, easier functionality, and for everyday people like you and all of our perseverance pioneers out there to get connected to. The idea was to create a walled garden, a single, easy-to-use program that bundled everything in one place: email, news, games, chat rooms, huge staples of their time. And they marketed it with one of the most aggressive and famous campaigns in history: the relentless distribution of free trial CD-ROMs. That's right, not USB, CD-ROMs. They were in your mailbox, in magazines, at store checkouts, each one offering a few hours online. And if memory serves me correctly, all you needed was another new email for those hours. I'm sure that was very overworked. It worked. AOL exploded in popularity by the year 1995. It had around 3 million users. Campaign successful. The service was simple. It was welcoming. It had 3 words that became a cultural staple. The phenomenon, there it is, that single audio clip recorded by a man named Elwood Edwards in his living room became the audio clip of its time. That first dopamine hit pre-social media. AOL wasn't just an internet service provider. It was a curated experience. It was an experience for everyone. The chat rooms were where you found communities based on similar interests, hobbies, alternative rock to famous either for, on the female side, romance novels. For a few glorious years, AOL wasn't just on the internet for millions. It was the internet. It was the first place you went for everything. And then getting more into it when the dial-up experience hit its peak, also leading into the rise of broadband and new web applications. But at the absolute height of its power, the seeds of AOL's decline basically were already sown. Its downfall wasn't a single event, but the single death and honest decay by 1,000 cuts from bad decisions and a rapidly changing technological landscape. Every day we're learning with ChatGPT and AI. It used to take so much time for advancements to happen. Now we're seeing them happen at an accelerated rate. So the first problem, that walled garden started to feel like a cage. While AOL kept its users inside in that realm, sphere, world, whatever you want to call it, the rest of the internet to the open world wide web of Netscape and Internet Explorer, all those wonderful applications, was exploding with creativity and endless information. AOL's all-in-one package started to seem limited, extremely limited compared to the other applications. And then came the catastrophic AOL Time Warner merger in 2001. At the time, it was the largest merger in U.S. history, but it quickly became one of the worst disasters and legendary business failures of its time. The move was a bet on combining old media with the new, but it led to a culture clash and a lack of focus, crippling the company as its core business was about to basically be disrupted and face its greatest threat. And we'll get into that. And that threat was broadband. Now we're talking dial-up. Now we're talking high-speed cable and DSL internet connections. Everybody watching, I'm sure you've heard of this many times. Now you're still even wondering, this stuff is still around? Yes, it is. So internet connections began to spread and they changed everything. They were always on, meaning no more dialing up, no more busy signals, no more sounds like this, and no more getting kicked offline when someone needed to use the phone. At the time, that was a heavy limitation. All that went away with these new connections. More importantly, they were fast, thousands of times faster than the 56K modem. The slow, screeching sound of dial-up went from being the sound of the future to something that people irked at, to the sound of frustration, to the sound of you're connected, everything's well, and then it's not. Basically, you're getting at step 1, step 2, step 3, dialing up, making connections, making friends, all that, and connected. So AOL was slow to adapt to this. Its entire infrastructure was built around dial-up, and transitioning to broadband was expensive, was complex, and it's interesting when you go back and look at it because that was basically the goal of what AOL was, to make the internet adaptable and easier to connect to. It did that, but it just stopped dead right there. So people started signing up for high-speed internet. So many people, hundreds, thousands, reaching to millions. And their cable companies realized they didn't need to pay for AOL on top of it. The network effect that made AOL powerful began to have a reverse effect. Your friends were getting faster connections, and soon you would too. The nail in the coffin was basically the internet and the web itself. The rise of Google made navigating the open web simple, and the emergence of social media much more user-friendly. If you can go back in time in your time warp to MySpace, maybe your top friends are still there, and Facebook created a new digital gathering place. The curated, simplified internet that AOL had pioneered was no longer necessary. It was completely left behind. The world had graduated from its training wheels and it went on to ride the bike itself. So this leading to an end of an era. And that end of the era for AOL, the final years of dial-up, were a long, slow fade into the sea of irrelevance. And by 2015, the service still had a surprising 2.1 million users, which is like, wow, 2.1 million users in 2015. And this time with high-speed internet, it's like, that's impressive in itself. But this did not stop the failure of AOL to become even more irrelevant. But by 2020, that number had dwindled to just a few thousand. For decades, it survived as a niche product, often serving like more rural areas where broadband was unavailable. We had no choice but to use dial-up, or for users who simply never felt the need to change. And they're still out there. And if it works for them, but it's just super slow. So AOL itself was passed between corporate owners, eventually being bought by Verizon in 2015. Later sold to the private equity firm in 2021. To these new owners, the dial-up service was a relic. It was basically looking at like a printing press of today, of the bygone era, the horse and buggy, coal-powered, basically steam engines. The official end was announced in August of this year, 2025, just a few days ago. AOL dial-up would be discontinued on September 30th this year. The news wasn't a shock to anybody, but it triggered a massive wave of nostalgia. And that nostalgia basically connects everybody with each other. Just like, where were you in that time? Remember when you had your first AOL, your first dial-up? You know, the very platforms that made dial-up obsolete were suddenly flooded with people sharing memories of their first screen names. And again, other sounds like this. So what will AOL's legacy be at the end of the day? On one hand, it's a warning about what happens when a company fails to adapt to change, in this instance, technological change. But it's so much more than that. It's much, much more. AOL was that pioneer that made the internet a household utility, introduced millions of people to email, to chat, basically, and the very idea of some of the first online communities, chat rooms, hobby interest areas. The features it bundled together became the foundation of our modern digital lives for other companies to replicate and to improve and to surpass. But the real legacy is emotional. It's emotional for a lot of people had their first connections. AOL represents a different time of the internet in totality, a time of discovery when logging on was an event, something to witness. And it was a time before algorithms and endless scrolling, when the digital world felt much more smaller, much more connected, even if not connected in the age we are today, but it felt that way. It was much more deliberate and full of possibility. The service that taught a generation how to connect with the world eventually fell completely silent, but it's an echo is in every email we open and every community that we join on the internet to this very day. AOL is the ghost in the machine of the modern internet. Gone forever, but never fully really logged off. And it might just be the last few handful of times when you'll remember this sound.
You've got mail.
Although AOL dial-up may be gone, the memories are not, from all of our Perseverance pioneers out there. And we want to hear yours. What was your very first screen name? Do you remember? Do you remember the sound of that modem like this? Or the thrill of seeing this? Or this famous login screen image? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive today on AOL, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you can be informed on all of our other videos.
Goodbye.
It is August 17th, 2025. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.